Brighton and Hove City Council has launched a safety investigation into how a boiler vent was clad over by builders working on a block of flats. David Green lives on the Bristol estate, is the leaseholder of a flat managed by the council. Gas engineers called out to repair the boiler said the cladding made the boiler unsafe. The council has since installed a new vent, but Mr Green's now calling on them to investigate why they signed off on that cladding in the first place.
I would like a full review of their investigations on these properties, why they were cladded in the first place, and also their health and safety procedures.
This morning, questions over how recladding a Brighton housing block actually blocked a vital gas vent.
Mears and the council had blocked up that vent. There was no proper ventilation. They said, you could have died, the pair of you.
Well, now there are calls for an urgent review of safety procedures.
Brighton and Hove City Council has launched a safety investigation into how a boiler vent was clad over by builders working on a block of flats. David Green lives on the Bristol estate and is the leaseholder of a flat managed by the council. Gas engineers called out to repair the boiler said the cladding had made it unsafe. The council since installed a new vent, but Mr Green is now calling on them to investigate why they signed off the cladding in the first place.
I would like a full review of their investigations on these properties, why they were cladded in the first place, and also their health and safety procedures.
7:10, BBC Sussex, our top story, and a Brighton man fears he could have died after discovering that builders actually cladded over a vent designed to release deadly carbon monoxide from his flat.
It was potentially life-threatening, that there was no proper ventilation, and in their words, they said, you could have died, the pair of you.
That's David Green, who lives in a block of council flats on the Bristol estate. He says British Gas discovered the breach on Saturday when they inspected his boiler. They immediately shut it down, but he's shocked it took 2 years to find the problem, despite the council signing off the building after the works back in 2014.
I would like a full review of their investigations on these properties, why they were cladded in the first place, and also their health and safety procedures.
Well, the emergency engineers at Brighton and Hove have fixed the problem now. They are investigating as well. They're also carrying out checks on all homes on the estate to ensure that this problem isn't more widespread. And we'll hear from the council in just a second. But first, here's more from Ben Weiss and David at his home.
We're looking at an external ventilation duct that connects with the living room.
David Green surveying the new vent in the wall of his flat on the Bristol estate, put in just hours before I met him. The old one had been clad over in 2014, and when that was discovered last weekend, it caused quite a shock.
Mears and the council, as part of their major works programme, overcladded the blocks and put in new windows. They then signed the blocks off as being fit for purpose and all work had been carried out satisfactory. When British Gas came round to us on Saturday, because Mears and the council had blocked up that vent, it was potentially life-threatening, that there was no proper ventilation, and in their words, they said, you could have died, the pair of you. And just testing our carbon monoxide detector. And yes,
David says that without that alarm, he's worried the lack of ventilation could have had serious consequences further down the line, and now he's calling on the council to make sure other residents don't face similar worries.
I would like a full review of their investigations on these properties, why they were cladded in the first place, and also their health and safety procedures. If you discover that your vents have been blocked up, contact the council immediately and insist that they come round and block them and address the situation, because it is potentially life-threatening.
As I left, the council's gas company was on their way to sign his boiler fit for use. By venting his concerns, David hopes to avert potential danger for others.
Venting his concerns, very good. Ben Weiss there, 7:30. Councillor Anne Meadows chairs Brighton and Hove's Housing Committee. Hello, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Neil.
We've got David on the line as well. Hello, David.
Hello there.
there.
Hi. And how can this is quite serious. I mean, how can this be allowed to happen?
Well, we were extremely concerned to get notification that British Gas had discovered this problem. It will never happen for any of our tenants because they no longer have back boilers. However, it does highlight the issue, really, for the need for annual gas safety checks and to have your boiler checked and serviced regularly.
Well, that doesn't seem to be the problem here at all, Anne. The problem is not what David knows he has to have a safety check. The problem is that the people who did the work for you covered up his vent. So there should be safety checks with the work. I mean, I would have thought there must be
safety checks with the cladding. It's safety checks with the boiler. It would have been picked up at a much earlier stage.
Well, hang on a second.
Really
you cladded over his vent. You cladded over his vent. That's not his fault.
It is a very unusual situation that we find ourselves in. I don't know how it happened. I cannot comment on that. It happened 3 years ago. It's taken till now to find the problem. We responded immediately, visited the property with a health and safety team and representatives from Mears who have dealt with the immediate problem. Now we have to contact all our other leaseholders to see if they have any of the old back boilers in their properties, but none of our tenants have back boilers, and all of our tenants receive regular boiler servicing and a gas annual safety check.
Does this make you want to ask questions of your contractor as well?
Well, we have to, as I say, it's 3 years ago. I wasn't around.
No, but that's not what we're talking about
now.
No,
I know.
What we're talking about now is
check.
Is it time to talk to them now about their checking procedures? And
I will go back and I will investigate how this has happened, and also has it happened at any other properties within any other blocks that we have cladded over the years. That is a given, but we're very sorry this has happened. We don't know. We've got to investigate why this has happened and how this has happened, and until we receive the results of that, we won't be able to comment.
Well, Anne, thank you. I do appreciate you coming on. And David, are you happy that your story is certainly getting rolled out over the rest of properties that are being cladded in Brighton?
Yes, indeed. I mean, I would urge not just the Bristol estate, but as Anne said, any properties that have been overcladded to do a full investigation there. I mean, what has been fed back to myself is that we were the only leaseholders with one of those back boilers. I think the correct term is flueless. But now Anne has said they have to do a full investigation about anyone else that could possibly have one of those boilers or heating systems. It doesn't seem as if they made proper investigations about who has this kind of appliance.
Yeah. Do you count yourself lucky, David?
I consider myself extremely lucky. My husband and myself, we've both been, haven't felt that well the last 2 years. This could well have been due to a leak in the, due to inadequate ventilation. Okay, we can't be totally sure of that, but it would certainly indicate that due to that lack of ventilation, that's what caused it.
Well, there you are. Well, let's hope you feel an awful lot better in the future. And thanks for alerting us to it, David. David Green there. It's 17 minutes past. And this morning on the programme, the questions over the recladding and how the recladding of a Brighton housing block blocked a vital gas vent.
I would like a full review of their investigations on these properties, because it is potentially life-threatening.
A Brighton man fears he could have died after builders cladded over a vent designed to release deadly carbon monoxide from his flat.
It was potentially life-threatening, that there was no proper ventilation, and in their words, they said, "You could have died, the pair of you."
That's David Green, who lives in a block of council flats on the Bristol estate. He says British Gas discovered the breach on Saturday when inspecting his boiler and immediately shut it down. But he's shocked it took 2 years to find the problem. Councillor Anne Meadows chairs Brighton and Hove's Housing Committee.
We responded immediately, visited the property with a health and safety team and representatives from Mears. Now we have to contact all our other leaseholders to see if they have any of the old back boilers but none of our tenants have back boilers, and all of our tenants receive regular boiler servicing and a gas annual safety check.
In the past hour, Brighton and Hove City Council have told us that this probably could well be a one-off incident, but they are checking all properties around the city. I did speak to Labour councillor Anne Meadows, who chairs Brighton and Hove's Housing Committee.
We responded immediately, visited the property with a health and safety team and representatives from Mears, who have dealt with the immediate problem. Now we have to contact all our other leaseholders to see if they have any of the old back boilers in their properties, but none of our tenants have back boilers, and all of our tenants receive regular boiler servicing and a gas annual safety check.
Does this make you want to ask questions of your contractor as well?
Well, we have to, as I say, it's 3 years ago. I wasn't.
She wasn't around at the time. She did go on to say that they are looking into this. Mears were asked to provide us a statement, but we haven't actually received that yet. We are going to be chasing that up to see what they say. Listening to that, Mark Myers, who's from Safe Gas and Plumbing Limited, and Pavel Holdrick, who's from Building Solutions Limited, both Brighton-based companies. We want to get an idea of how this might happen. Hello, Mark. Hello, Pavel.
Hello there. Hello, Neil.
Morning, guys. Mark, as a gas expert, what's your reaction to the story?
I find it a little bit hard. I mean, it's kind of a common sense thing. If you see a vent and open into a building, then you've got to sort of think this is for a reason. And seek some advice and find out exactly what that vent is feeding.
Pavel, would it be obvious that it was a ventilation duct for gas?
Yes, it's absolutely obvious.
Why?
Yeah.
Explain that to us.
Well, because the flue for the boiler, especially, it's totally different from the other pipes coming out of any building.
Mark, I mean, it's interesting because you must come across similar sort of things, builders who don't quite understand the gas world. Is it common?
Yeah, it's a really common thing. And last week, somebody built a porch onto the outside of a building, and they built it right up against the gas flue. Just builders just don't know the actual rules and regulations. There is a diagram which you can get from the gas safe register to follow, which does help. But I would say if anybody's having any building work done, then just contact a gas safe engineer first before you do it, and get the advice on the vent or the terminal on the outside, and make sure it's not going to contravene the gas regulations. Right.
Okay. But presumably, if something like this does happen, I mean, as in this case, it could be very dangerous.
Yeah, because the particular boiler they're talking about is a back boiler, which is an open fluid appliance. And that does need combustion air from outside to burn correctly. So the minute you cut off that air supply, then you're restricting the amount of oxygen going to the burner, which then can produce carbon monoxide eventually. So yeah, it's a very important. Combustion air is very, very important for an open fluid appliance, which it sounds like this is what this situation was.
Pavel, just tell us how it works once the job is done. Is there normally someone from within the company who then just, like the foreman, for example, who goes and has a look and checks that everything's okay?
There's absolutely is, but I would have to say that this would be about building control to check the last bit. It's absolutely correct, and then they will give you a stamp so everything's by the regs. So I think there's a big fault on the counter side as well in this case. Right.
When you heard the story, Pavel, were you surprised?
Well, I was really surprised because this is actually life-threatening. So, I mean, whoever done it at first place, it's his fault, and then the second to blame is the council, who should check that if everything was alright done by the regulations. And to do this, it's unforgiving mistake. Imagine that someone would die. It's just not something we just turn the page on.
Thanks very much indeed. Obviously checking out to make sure that this hasn't occurred elsewhere as well. But Mark and Pavel, thanks very much indeed. It's Mark Myers from Safe Gas and Plumbing Limited and Pavel Holdrick from Buildcraft Solutions Limited. 8:15, it's BBC Sussex and the news headlines with Joe Rickards.
A man fears he could have died after builders cladded over a vent designed to release deadly carbon monoxide from his flat.